I don't speak American. I'm a speak Australian. I speak Maltese. Yes, sorry.
I like that you started off the panel with something that's a bit different, or I guess the discussion.
No. Players, they play to win, and I don't think so. I think that players, they play and they engage to play.
As a player, and I'm a gambler myself, right? Maybe I go to the casino because I've got an hour in between errands and I want to have a fun time. But in the back of my mind, I'm hoping I walk out of there with more than I walked in. Right. It is a controversial statement. I do think players have winning in mind. This is a great example, though. Are you familiar with Costco? And oftentimes where we see gamification fall down is when we have these, friction-filled events that break engagement with customer, and it actually ruins the momentum that you've built because they're having this amazing, great experience, and then they get to, you know what? Now I don't even want to play anymore. Now I want to just go check out. So that's really what, at a core, we have to make sure that we're reviewing.
Welcome to IGB Podcast, iGaming Checkup with Dr. Eyal, brought to you by IGB in partnership with Replay. I'm Dr. Eyal. I've been passionate about games and the people that makes them for many years. Humans have been playing games of chance even before we could write. So what is going on here? Why gambling games are so central to our experience as a species? And why something as simple as a slot machine is also the hardest game to make? Sure, there are plenty of iGaming podcasts out there covering industry trends and headlines. But this isn't just more of the same. We are here to challenge assumptions, invite sideways thinkers and industry outsiders, and explore the complexity of an ever-evolving, fascinating, and innovative space. If you are ready to think differently about iGaming, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hi, I'm joined by Zoe Ebling, VP Interactive at AGS. Hi, Zoe. Nice to have you here.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So, on your LinkedIn, I've seen this really interesting tag, play to win, and I find this interesting because for me, in many panels, I always say that players, they play to play, not to win. So, and everyone's find this almost controversial or strange. No. Players, they play to win, and I don't think so. I think that players, they play and they engage to play. And I was wondering, seeing that tagline, how does that capture you?
Yeah, this is I've never had this question before, and really relevant to our conversation. I agree with you that maybe a player plays for an engagement, but I think at the back of their mind, they have winning in mind. The play to win tagline that I use on my LinkedIn is sort of my personal brand. It's how I like to approach things, I guess. But if we are thinking about it in a more general term, as a player, and I'm a gambler myself, right? Maybe I go to the casino because I've got an hour in between errands and I want to, have a fun time. But in the back of my mind, I'm hoping I walk out of there with more than I walked in, right? So it is a controversial statement. I like that you started off the panel with something that's a bit different, or I guess the discussion. But I do think players have winning in mind.
The thing is actually what we see from the research, that players often experience a win event very early in the session almost as a negative thing. Whereas if the win event is later in the session, they see it as a much more positive thing. So you can say that, of course, whenever you engage with some kind of a gaming system, you want to win. That's the sale. But I think that what we see is that players they just want to engage, and that's kind of connect to what we are here to talk about, gamification and the play experience in general. And I was thinking, the headline is to buy or not to buy. And for me, the to buy or not to buy, it's aimed both at players, where many times gamification elements create an upsell for players, and at the same time, for operators and for suppliers, there's so many opportunities of developing and buying existing gamification tools, and you often ask yourself, with such a large variety of those kind of offerings, is it something that we actually want to buy into? Now, for me, I was wondering, to start off with, like, what, when you think of gamification, what does that entails in your opinion?
Yeah, I try to always just come at things with like, what's the simple kind of boiled down version of it? For me, gamification combines player agency with rewards that aren't cash. We see so many examples of this in the marketplace today. And to your point, we see examples of this that are successful, and we see examples of this that add a lot of noise and friction to player journeys. And constantly considering how gamification is implemented and what the goal is are crucial to ensure success.
For me, when I'm trying to think of the why, like why was it good for? You know, what's the hardest thing to do often is to come with a good core product. And coming from casual, developing casual games, developing social games, social, free to play in-app purchase, like this kind of social casinos, you find that when you've got a core product that is interesting to players, then it's just a really good start. But that's just at what you start with, and your goal, the holy grail, is the evergreen. You want something that players can keep on coming back to and back to, and in a way, what is almost improbable, impossible almost, is to create that core product that is interesting enough. Like, so many games out there, so many games, so many game producers, so many companies, so many studios. But then when you get something, a good core game, then gamification becomes, I would say, like a lot more standardized. Like, it's a lot easier now when you've got this really good core product, then start bringing those gamification elements and get to that, like, they're like, the holy grail. You've got like an evergreen. There's always something to do. There's always reason to come back and engage. There's always more CRMs. There's always more ways of upselling for your players. And that's through gamification, which is a lot more standard in a way, but still, it can't replace the core product, but it creates that ongoing engagement. And I think that in how hard it is to create a good core product and how competitive it is, gamification now becomes like something you can't live without. And there's so many ways of skinning this cat, and I find that many are very controversial even. So, I mean, if you think like a few elements, like if you try to create a CRM within your core game. So take something like a bonus buy or a buy feature or something like that. There's so much a debate around that. So if you think, yes, it's not quite a free element, but in a way it's a different way of interacting with the game. Like you have the same RTP and all that. You make a purchase that's slightly larger, but you're still engaging with the game. But it gives you a very different experience. It takes you directly to the core of the game. And people love to hit, like some operators say this is horrible. Some players say this is horrible. Some suppliers say that they will never develop it on their games. But yeah, what's your take on like the buy feature on other gamification elements like this?
Yeah, I would say there was a lot of things you said there that I agreed with. One being your core product needs to be the focus. I think oftentimes we see suppliers who really focus on gamification as a mask to, not having a strong core product. And so at AGS, gamification is an incremental offering to our core product, and that's how we consider the tool. I think another thing I heard you say was really, what do I think of the existing tools that are out there? And I like to use analogies to just bring it back to simple terms, and oftentimes use American analogies, which is
I don't speak
a
American. I'm a speak
bad
Australian. I speak
but
Maltese. Yeah, sorry.
this is a great example though. Are you familiar with Costco? That's a global brand, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's big in America, but it's this big wholesale
Mm.
warehouse, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's the most effective tool that they have at Costco for customer? They've got all these tools, right? They have big carts, they've designed the warehouse to be, something that you want to shop, but what always gets people is the free samples, right? And in a lot of ways, gamification engagement tools are like ways for either someone to sample a product or for someone to have surprise delight throughout their experience that then creates a secondary reaction, which is maybe continued engagement or longer session times. That's really why we use these trigger points, right? And so if you go back to the example of Costco and you think about free sampling, and you know how successful that is because either you've experienced that self and you felt that joy of like, oh, I would never try this. It's so tasty. It's right here. Let me put it in my, and it then now all of a sudden you've added whatever, an
Living in
incremental
Canada,
amount to your cart.
I've went to Costco and I'm thinking this is ridiculous. There's no way I'm going to pay for membership. I pay for the membership, and they're giving me this massive trolley. Like, there's no way I'm filling this trolley. And that's really nice. I need to get a second trolley.
See,
and I wouldn't fit in the car.
Now what about if you went into Costco and they had some confusing Plinko machine where depending on what it hit, you got to pick something, and you walk up to it and you're like, I don't even want to play this. I don't like any of the rewards, right? So what's so impactful about it is that they have found these triggers that really work. And I think the core of what you're asking me is gamification great? Yes, when it's implemented correctly and when it's thoughtful of the player journey and it makes them have some type of feeling that elicits more engagement and community. So that's really where we can put things into buckets. And oftentimes where we see gamification fall down is when we have these really, friction-filled events that like break engagement with customer, and it actually ruins the momentum that you've built because they're having this amazing, great experience, and then they get to, this and it's confusing, and you know what? Now I don't even want to play anymore. Now I want to just go check out. So that's really what at a core we have to make sure that we're reviewing. And not to kind of belabor this topic, but in preparation for this, I was thinking of, pieces that I might want to talk about and where I see gamification do well and not. And what I think we always start with the player, right? But a lot of times what happens when you're on the R&D side is you've got this idea of how to impact the player and you've sold your customer on this idea. And then when you go to implement it, right, you always have to make changes. Hey, we can't implement it this way. This is the workaround that works better with our system. And these are real life things that people who are working on these challenges in our industry are faced with all the time. And as you make iterations and decisions here, you move further and further away from the player. And where we see solutions that really work is where they keep the player front of mind throughout the entire development process to ensure that we have those, free sample moments.
But it's funny that you say that, like the free sample. I totally connect. There's lots of research, by the way, looking at the word free. When we hear the word free, we will rather. Dan Ariely in his book, Particularly Rational, he talks about two chocolates, right? One is of really low value you get for free, and another one you have to pay 10 cents for, but it's worth $1. So rationally, you should really pay the 10 cents. Everyone goes for the free one, like everyone. 90% go for the free one with an inferior product. But, when we looked at the bonus buy, the awarded feature at Ruby Play, we decided implementing it. I was quite kind of curious to see what does it do? Does it actually upsell? Do we see change in behavior from betting behavior? Is it like players to what we see the streamers do, just like buy feature, buy. No. What we actually see is that players, they drink in moderation. Maybe they'll buy one or two or maybe three. So overall, we don't see impact on the wallet. But what we do see is a huge impact on retention. So it's kind of like in Costco, hey, look, I will try this pizza. I love this pizza. And oh my God, like you change retention, the D30 retention of games when players interact with the buy feature and buy it maybe 2 or 3 times can go up by a factor of 2 or 3. So it's not just a small change, it's a massive change while not breaking the wallet. And then for us, when we said, okay, a really interesting way of creating gamification around that is, can we award it? Can we create a system when we take, instead of buying, the feature, we can give the operators the ability to award that feature. So then it's really free. So then they can have, they do it through an element of an upsell. And then, yes, it might be on a deposit or a bigger deposit. Now you get some kind of a awarded feature or something like that. But at the core of it, we see it as a retention tool, not as a wallet, as a wallet enhancement tool. And I think that's one really interesting thing is that in my experience, I haven't been able to really see evidence that you can increase wallet. So say if you have a player and their budget is $50, that's the budget. Can you consistently now somehow turn that $50 into $80? And like, I found that you can't. Like it's not the right mission. Like maybe you want to increase your share of the $50, but you will not turn this $50 to $80 that easy. So what's your take on that?
Well, it sounds like you have some research that's supporting your claim. Is that just what you're seeing with the products that you've created and the impact that they have on players, or is that tied to like a larger research study?
My access to data on the operator side is limited, but I can see that when I've got a really successful product, what I see is I just cannibalizing more of a market share of other suppliers, rather than all of a sudden, the players are coming and is like going all nuts. Like I don't see this kind of comments from operator ever. It's like, okay, let's do this, and now we will see our players change the behavior in this way. Like I don't see it. I haven't seen it consistently. I haven't seen it, but that's the data I've got. And my view on actual real money iGaming players is limited because I don't have direct access to players. I just see their behavior.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying. So I agree with you in that we don't have enough access to data to be able to definitively say yes or no. However, my experience, like outside of AGS and just it takes a whole ecosystem of things to make that type of impact on a player. And I don't think it's just the supplier alone with product and potential features that can make that transformational of an impact. But I do think, and I have seen evidence of it being possible when sort of developing an all-encompassing ecosystem that's considerate of player.
But like you love talking about incrementals. I've seen a few of your posts and panels, and I was thinking, like if you think of like theoretically, can you end up increasing the wallet, not by really increasing the wallet, but then by through creating incrementals, then you have other channels that then take maybe a percentage of other leisure budget a player might have through that incremental. So like my spend on Netflix, which you like to give them. So if as a supplier I create some kind of a content that is Netflix-esque,
yeah,
word, and then I can actually get some wallet share from there through those, because incrementals essentially is just looking at these different verticals, really. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of where to start. I think a lot about that. I think you
I
definitely
haven't seen
hit
you
it on the
speak about
head.
it for almost a whole year,
Hey,
though. Anyway, so it's like
I'm glad someone's paying attention.
I pay attention.
So
It's me. I'm the one that paid attention.
so why do I have this approach, right? I have this approach because I operate in a digital business, right? And the something that is super core and very relevant to AGS as a company that has got land-based online footprints. Uh, this is something I come back to all the time, right? From an online business, we don't have the same butts in seats phenomenon that the land-based business has, right? So if I'm a land-based supplier, I want a butt in seat of my cabinet 24/7. If someone is not
Mm-hmm.
sitting at my game and playing, I'm losing money, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that same phenomenon in the online side because we have um, so much more space, right? There's obviously a finite amount of homepage placement, which is really important for business. But what other digital businesses can we look at and see who's been transformational, leveraging incremental products? I mean, we come back to Netflix time and time again, right? But what you can do with an online business is take a product that's really niche and market it accordingly to a specific player and actually find a lot of value there. And so I think as we move more and more into a digital space, what you're going to start to see as certain shifts is that you're going to need these personalized incremental approaches to a variety um, of games and people. And what we're going to see is that companies who can figure out how to sustain personalized incremental initiatives at a mass bulk rate, which is possible with AI, they're going to be more successful at just scaling in a digital space because digital space needs that, right? If you don't do that, you're going to miss out. That's the key for how you revolutionize product in a digital space, right? And that's why I focus so much on incrementals and the business picture. And I don't know if this is a good visualization or not, that I try to paint for people is like, if you think about your opportunities, right? And or your revenue, it's based up, your revenue line is based up of all these different opportunities. And if I'm a supplier, maybe it's different games, right? And then features are in there. And some games are smaller and some games are going to be a big hit. So you have all these sort of circles that are stacking on top of each other. And that's what makes up your, we're going to hit this revenue because we have product and features and all these things that are getting us to this number. Well, when you take AI, right, you basically fatten all those bubbles immediately because you're just finding efficiencies within there. And then what I think of for incremental is I think about the thickness of the circle, right? So there's a way that you can inflate opportunities, but then there's also a way that you can thicken opportunities. And then when you have intersections of opportunities, which is another thing that I focus on, where's the intersection of land and online? Where's that convergence, that opportunity where they hit, and how can I thicken that? And so all of a sudden, when you're thickening your walls of opportunities and you're inflating, that's how you get to really big growth opportunity. And that's how you see companies that are able to grow much faster than market rate, which is what AGS has been able to do in the past year. So these are like philosophical business principles of how I achieve, better results than the competition. And I appreciate your paying attention to the nuance behind that. And I know we've gotten a bit away from the gamification discussion, but that's what I see gamification is an incremental ad. And if we go back to the Costco example of you're going to always start with what's the best sort of opportunities, and then how do you iterate on top of that? And in a digital space where there's the black box is endless, how do you create systems that capitalize on that so you can outsmart your competitors?
Well, we used to say, back when I was in Playtika, now at Ruby, that sometimes when the sky is not the limit, it's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And I think, look, with that, for us now, we launched a new studio. We call it Mad Hat, and it's fast games. And the first game we're launching, our notion around this, it's actually a marketing campaign pretending to be a game. So it's kind of like a mind game, mind when you select things on there, but it's with chilies. The idea is that players will be able to create content where they hit a mine, they have to eat a chili, and they need to stream it, right? And then, so that's kind of like the idea of how this game works. But the idea is that how can we create content that is good content, and then connect that good content as a vertical to do this kind of work. Now, I don't expect this game to be like a massive GGR maker, but it can be a really strong branding maker. It can be a really strong a marketing maker. And for me, that's really interesting. It's a really interesting thing to explore. So I went off topic, but it is a bit of a gamification. But like eating chilies with your friends, it's fun and it's.
It is. And look, you're talking about the major components here, which are like engagement, community, right? When we're trying to solve for these intersections, and it's a hard thing to do. And we have to be willing to try, off the wall ideas. And there's space to, right? You could never do that in the land-based casino because it would be too expensive. Like, this is where we can play and have fun. And possibly finds the next big thing.
Yeah, I read your recent article when you talked about the strong core product in land-based. Then it's kind of gives you an easy fix into online. But I think that we do have advantage in iGaming with the speeds and the ease in which we can try stuff. Even in a regulatory environment, it's still a lot easier than to actually have a physical slot. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. So,
and to interject gamification into this, I think that you're right. But I also think that if we look historically at any regulated market, regulation will come. In one way that we can enable players to have those types of experiences where there are things like, speed and other attributes that we might not be able to traditionally have in land-based. We can use gamification as a way for safe gambling. So we actually layer in safety while a player can still have a session where they play fast, right? Maybe it's like play this, take a break to get your next reward that unlocks a faster speed on this game. Or, I'm throwing something completely off the wall, but to your point, like, how do we, because history will show us that we'll create all these really fun and engaging things, and then regulation will come in to protect the player, and then we'll have to amend what we've done to, know what I mean? But like, ultimately, that's what happens, right? How can we actually create a proactive stance that says, look, we want players to be able to play in the way that they want to. How can we use gamification to add layers of player safety so that we write a new kind of chapter on how someone can interact with the game?
But you see, I really always believe, and maybe I'm naive, but I believe the incentives are for us to create those kind of experiences. We don't want players blowing up. We don't want this. It's not good for us. It's not good for anybody. I'd want you to spend a cup of coffee worth on my game a day than to spend, like $2,000 in a week and say, oh my God, and that's it. I shouldn't touch it. So
yeah. And to be very clear, like, I believe that regulations and regulatory bodies are in partnership with us in creating a safe experience. But I think we've limited our thought process into like what's possible. You know what I mean? Don't you see how we've fallen short in being able to create new avenues for longevity with some of these product lines and things we're wanting to create?
I think that, yeah, it depends on the regulator, though. I think that the regulators that understand this create partnership with companies like ours, and then we can really do well. But then in places where, like, you call yourself a gaming girl, like I really love what I do. I'm really passionate about games and slot machines. I think, show me a successful game, I will show you the slot machine within it, right? And I think that when you have regulators that looking at iGaming and gaming as this vice. It's a bad thing. We need to just minimize it and get rid of it if possible. That's where you end up with bad experiences, with often predatory operators, predatory suppliers. This is where you get the bad things. When you have regulators that actually work with you and open-minded and want to understand concepts like gamifications, and also, like how incrementals can be relevant and how you create a really good ecosystem. That's where you get a thriving, successful, safe environment for everybody, for suppliers, for operators, and for players. Before we finish it, what your future of gamification? What would you say there?
I mean, everything personalized AI, right? Like that's the future trajectory that we're on. But I also hope to see safe gambling, gamification interjected into what we do as well.
I'm a bit of an optimist in some respect, a bit of a pessimist in some respect. I just think that AI can be very scary, but I do think it's a very powerful tool for us to create that edge. I just spoke in a panel a couple of days ago in SBC in Lisbon, where the thing that allows operators to distinguish themselves, to give them a branding that makes them unique compared to all of the other operators, this is the thing that would really make them successful, and this is what we can give them using those AI tools. That specialization, that personalization for them, to bring their brand, to bring their unique experience. And I think that gamification and AI would really allow us to be relevant there, because we probably can design those things for them better than they can for themselves. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity for us there.
But you're right. Everything comes back to the core. It depends how it's implemented, right? That's the sort of footnote.
Just click the I button and go and have apple spritz if you that.
I've seen some incredible uses of AI that really create transformative experiences, and then I've also seen it used in a kind of predatory, right, stance as well. And so that is why always coming back to being in partnership with regulatory and safe player protections in mind. And I think we're at a turning point for that, right? There's a lot of things that are happening, like Evolution's Nevada license, that are going to really indicate which way we're going. And that is something that at AGS we have integrity on, is what I'll say.
I think it's important. Okay, so it's been a great conversation. Thanks a lot for joining me here. I'm just conscious of time. And hopeful to see you G2E maybe, or some other place around next time in the US.
I'm always around. You'll see me.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of IGB Podcast, iGaming Checkup with Dr. Eyal. There's plenty more to come, so stay with us for more eye-opening, thought-provoking, and stigma-challenging conversations that dig deeper into the world of iGaming.